Lexus presents tennis on Sky Sports.
And we're just seeing a few of the numbers that are coming through, and they really, Laura, you were courtside, but the numbers really tell the tale of what we witnessed out there today.
Yeah, I think Djokovic in particular just couldn't get a look on Carlos's first serve, 84%, and that was a key moment for him today when it counted, and the fact that it was 31 winners to 30 unforced errors. And when you're talking about such fine margins, when someone's absolutely ripping forehands, I think his average forehand speed was about 85 miles an hour, you know, you've got no right to actually have a winning ratio on that kind of stat. So yeah, all in all, you know, just a really dominant performance. And I like that in the interview he said that he knew he had to make it physical. That definitely played a part towards the end of the second set. You could see in the tiebreak that Djokovic was starting to fade a little bit physically because it's just so hard to keep that intensity. I'm very glad that it wasn't this windy on the court.
It's awful, isn't it? The wind has just picked up something chronic. Martina, Sky Sports tennis viewers would have seen a lot of you during that match. They kept going to you as you were watching intently the action.
It was intense.
So give us your takeaways from what you saw.
Well, it was a lot more intense than it needed to be because Carlos had left 30 a bunch of times in the second set. Could have been a 6-2 set, but Novak kept hanging in there. But it was hit. The ball was hit really hard, but there weren't that many great rallies. So I think Novak just didn't. The backhand wasn't quite cutting it. And I think he's not used to not being able to win more points on the first serve of Carlos. He was like 85% points when he got the first serve in. So he just kept pushing. Normally it's Novak that doesn't give people room to breathe, and now it's Alcaraz. Again, the tables have turned. He doesn't give you room to breathe. So I think Novak was feeling stressed and just couldn't really find an opening.
It must be very difficult for Novak Djokovic. He's a realist. He knows he's 38. He knows things are changing. But it must be very difficult for him seeing the way those tables are turning.
It stinks. You know, I went through it, and the effort is the same. You feel the same. But the biggest thing is I didn't feel that much slower, but I had to remind it was a drop shot. I had to you better run. Whereas, 10 years ago, you just run. You don't have to think about it. So it's not that you're that much slower, but the reaction is still there. It's like, oh, I gotta go. And then you played the right point. You have finally had the right shot, and you miss it when you could have made it with your eyes closed 10 years ago. So it just gets frustrating because the effort is there, the feeling is very good, but the result is not.
We put together some great points, Ryan. This is from early on, and this is from both of them. And we are going to start with Novak Djokovic. There were oohs and ahs from the crowd in the early stages as to what we were going to expect.
Well, going out there, he got broken in the very first game, and that wasn't a good start. He's trying to stay on serve, but he did try to battle back there. It was a beautiful passing shot. He starts trying to get the crowd involved. He knows he's going to need to get that momentum, and he was really looking for that break back. This was a good opportunity for him to try and get out in front in the second set. He played a great point here. What a lob. This defensive touch to get this ball back in play, and then that defensive backhand open stance that we've seen so many times draws the air out. And at this moment here, this was the time where you thought, okay, is Novak going to find the fountain of youth for a little bit of time here? And then Carlos continued to show why he hasn't dropped a set in the tournament.
And he is that shot. The drop shot off the first volley when you're serve volleying is the most difficult shot in tennis. I can tell you because it's really hard to do, and he made it look easy. The crowd didn't appreciate it enough. But it was funny that Novak was winning the long, the glamour rallies. Novak was winning them, but he lost the war.
But against everyone else, he would have won this point 3 times over already. It was just the fact that Carlos, yes, wasn't winning the long rallies, but he was extending them in the first place. That seemed to be the issue, because then you've got to do it again and again.
Yeah, I mean, that point right there, that 3-1-30 all point where Novak played a really good point, and then Carlos with the continental grip, he changes his grip on the forehand and still nudges it by, gets the break point, and then breaks back. From that moment, it felt like it was going to be tough sledding, and Novak was going to have to put that much more energy, because even if he had won the second set, that extra energy to go to a 7-6 set is going to play over time, and it just feels like, look, in the back of your mind as a player when you don't have that physical edge on your opponent. I feel like Novak knew in this match that it needed to be on his terms in a quick sort of manner.
Well, it was going to get harder and harder. Let's take people back to the tie-break that Ryan touched on there. And if he needed to win the first set and he didn't, he desperately needed to win this tie-break in the second.
Yeah, just didn't have a good start. Alcaraz with the early mini break, and it just felt like he had all that momentum, and then he could afford to throw in an unforced error, but he kind of didn't really. It was quite one-sided for me, that 4-2 changeover. It just looked like two very different areas of body language. Carlos was basically running out of the changeover, and then down the other end you've got Novak trying to slide and do everything, and still enjoying it at this point. Yeah, he still wanted some love from the crowd, and he had it. But it just looked like this was really where it started to be obvious that he was running out of gas.
Yeah, absolutely. And Novak, he made for over a decade and a half his career in these moments of being a complete wall, going lockdown mode anytime that there was these big, long points. And I remember watching these epic rallies between Djokovic and Nadal where they would play 42, 45 shots late in the 5th set. And that's always been his go-to, just to completely outlast and outwork his opponent. At this stage, he feels like he has to press the initiative a little bit more, and that's why you see some uncharacteristic errors in those crunch time moments.
And my calculation was the very first point of the tiebreak when Novak has not been serving volley, and he throws in the serving volley on the first point. That's an awkward half volley, misses it, and he was on his heels the whole time the rest of the way. Normally he just goes, as you said, lockdown mode. He doesn't miss. He makes you go for too much. And it was, again, the tables just have totally flipped on him, and maybe he just doesn't know how to deal with that.
But it felt like he couldn't rely on the backhand cross rally today either. That usually that is his bread and butter, that he can be the one to open up the backhand line. And it looked like at times he didn't know what shot to play with, because he knows from the other side that Carlos has got a racket on it.
Well, the downline has to be really good because you're going to Carlos's forehand. And then he's looking for the forehand and backhand corner, so the backhand cross court needs to be really good. Otherwise, it's going to be a forehand into the open court. So it's Novak that shrank the court and make people think that they have to hit such a great shot. And now it's Novak that.
Absolutely, but it is a sign of the changing of the guards, right? When Carlos is even saying in his post-match interview, in an honest manner, like, look, I didn't play my best match, and he still won in straight sets. So that's showing you that
must be nice to be that good.
Yeah, right.
Nice problem.
Can you imagine?
But that must have stung a little bit for Novak Djokovic when he hears those comments.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't listen to that back, because he's going to be like, did you really not play that great? But look, at the end of the day, Carlos is just being honest. He's saying, look, I had some errors in there. I don't make a lot of those errors sometimes in a lot of my matches, and I can play better than that. And I think that he knows that he will have to play his very best if he plays Sinner in the final, which we anticipate.
This might be a really controversial question. You might all shout me down. But do you believe that Novak Djokovic believed that he could win this match today?
I think he had to believe that. I mean, yes, you still think you can do it, but everything has to go your way. But I absolutely thought that he could win. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for me, I think that when he sees a daytime match and he knows that the physicality is not on his side, the daytime conditions are going to play faster, and I think he knew he had to roll the dice. I think he knew he had to go more aggressively. He had to try and serve as big as he can. His first serve percentage was low because he was trying to hit the serve as big as he possibly could. So I saw him rolling the dice, trying to see if he could, catch lightning in a bottle and maybe light up Carlos for a set and a half, 2 sets, and put some pressure on, and he just didn't have it.
But surely he's now, with what seemingly seems to be, Laura, the rest of the players in men's tennis, that those two have separated themselves and they are above absolutely everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow, it feels like, but I would love to be in a position where I can be 38 and still make semis of every Grand Slam I'm entering. So I think the ballpark has just changed, where we're so used to seeing him win these events and be so dominant. Then when it changes, it feels like, our expectations are still the same as they were, but yet the tennis is not the same. And for Carlos and Jannik, they're improving week in, week out, and it just feels like, they're on the upward curve, and maybe Novak is on the downward.
Yeah, and to look at the future of tennis right now, if you look at the next guys that could potentially challenge 1-2, I mean, it's pretty obvious that Novak is firmly number 3. Whatever the seedings say, whatever the rankings say, it's not reflective of the level because he doesn't play every week like everyone else. But I think that there's Carlos and Jannik Sinner, and then there's Novak, and then there's the group after.
Yeah,
and that group behind is going to have to do a lot because Novak, as we said, I mean, it looks like he's getting further away from the goal.